I have a quick self-assessment that I want you to take to help give you some insights into what might be getting in the way for you or where you need to focus. And then I'm going to go through the 5 secrets that I promised. Um, and the session is scheduled to go to 1:30. But if we run out of questions, we can stop at that point. But I'll just keep going with Q&A up to 1:30 for anyone who has questions. And feel free to bring up questions, challenge me on anything, put comments in the chat box as we go along, because this is really for your benefit. And I like things to be interactive. So here's the assessment. I have, I think it's 7 questions that I want you to rate yourself on, or activities. I want you to rate yourself, and here's the scale. 1 to 10, 1, you're a complete novice. 10, you consider yourself an expert who does it extremely well. So here are the statements I want you to rate yourself on. I'm not going to ask you to share these with me, so be brutally honest with yourself. First, I present a clear and compelling unique value proposition. 2, I have at least 20 engaging stories that demonstrate concrete results. 3, I have a steady stream of one-on-one networking meetings. 4, networking connections regularly provide me strong referrals. 5, I secure the interviews I want for the jobs I deserve. 6, my interviews consistently generate job offers. And 7, I skillfully negotiate offers. So now you should have rated yourself on all 7 of these on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being novice, 10 being expert. And here's how I want you to look at your ratings. If you rated something a 1 to 3, that's something that's really going to hold you back, and you need to get help fast. You need to get coaching. You need to go to a class. You need to find a group that's working on this, whatever you need to do. But you need to get that score up as quickly as you can, because it's going to hold you back. If you got a 4 to a 7, okay, you've got a little bit of mastery. Now, what can you do to move that up to true mastery, to that 8 to 10 level? Now, and finally, if it's an 8 to 10, first off, assess the score. Find an expert and get their take. Make sure you're not, deluding yourself as to how, like if you say, I present a clear and compelling unique value proposition, you rate that a 9. Go to some people in your field and say, hey, be brutally honest with me. I want to get your take on this. Here's my value proposition, and see what they say. See if they agree that it is as good as it is. Second, assuming that you really, these are an 8 to 10, now think about what can I do to leverage my skill? Because the problem with things that we rate an 8 to 10 is they start to fall off our radar. We feel like we got them mastered. Why should I pay any attention? Yeah, I got this clear and compelling unique value proposition. Well, I don't need to do any effort. I don't need to put any effort into it. Well, are you getting that unique value proposition in front of the maximum number of people out there? Is it clear on your LinkedIn profile and not muddied with a lot of other stuff? Do you present it in different conversations, different venues? Do you have a short version of it in your tagline on your email? So think about, what can I do to take this thing that I am so good at and really move myself forward? For example, I was talking to someone, this was several years back, who I have a more robust version of this assessment that I have people take on my website, and then we have a deeper conversation about their search. And he had rated networking in a place that said he had a lot of mastery. Um, and getting referrals was like no problem at all. So I asked him about that. We started talking about it. He said, well, yeah, I'm really good at it, but actually I've stopped doing it because it really wasn't getting anywhere. I said, okay, that's interesting. So the question on the deeper assessment he had taken said um, to rate himself on getting 5 one-on-one networking meetings per week. And I said, well, what if I changed that? And instead of telling you you needed to get 5 one-on-ones every week, I said you need to go get 5 one-on-ones with C-level executives every week because he was aiming to be a C-level executive. And he's like, wow, if I could do that, that would change everything. And you could see the light bulb go off. He went off to try and do that. And the next time I talked to him a couple months later, he had landed as a C-level executive over in London. So see what you can do to take advantage of that thing that you have great mastery. If you don't have mastery, get there. And when you do, see what can I do to raise the bar or engage this more. Don't let it just fall off your radar because, okay, I got it done and I let it go. So let's get into the secrets. So the first secret to landing a six-figure job, don't be a moving target. So I see this happening all the time, that people don't have a clear picture of what that job is or what the goal they're going after. And if you don't have a goal, any path will take you there, but it's going to take you a very long time to get there. Um, when you have a very clear picture for what this job is that I want, and it's a very and the narrower the focus, the better. Then what happens is that it makes it really easy for others to help you. You know, if Tom calls me and says, "Hey, John, I'm looking for a job." Okay, McDonald's is hiring. If he says, "I'm looking for a job in this sector, this sector, this sector, or this sector," it's like, I don't know what his focus is. I don't know how to help him. So you want to make it really easy for people to help you. Don't confuse them. And it also shows to them that you have really thought about this. You've really done the homework to get to that clear, specific goal. And it demonstrates commitment. And finally, it communicates passion, which is so important. Lester could come in for an interview and he's got all the qualifications I could ask for, but he just doesn't seem very excited. Yeah, he can do the job, absolutely no question. But it's just like I'm wondering why he's doing this. He seems bored. And Marty comes in and he's just really excited. And it's clear that this role is such a passion for him. Well, if it's all close in the hiring process, I'm going to hire Marty every time because he's communicated that passion. He's shown me that he is the person who, when things get tough, is going to put in the extra hours, is going to put in the work because it's something that excites him. Where Lester, I'm like, yeah, it's probably the 9 to 5er who's going to be. I'm going to go look for him, and his there's going to be the coat hanger swinging as he slipped out the office. I knew someone who actually used to do that. So think about your six-figure job scorecard and use that to focus your search. So think about some of these aspects. What's the role? What's the level? What are some of the possible titles? What are the duties that I perform? And what are the key challenges that I would like to be involved in, that I would love to dig my teeth into? And even what are the challenges that sometimes come with this sort of role that I'm not interested in? Because that'll help me in evaluating any red flags as I'm going forward and exploring. What's the leadership level that I want? Do I want to be that critical support, like the key number 2 person, or do I want to be leading the charge in whatever I'm doing? What style of operation helps me do my best? Do I like a lot of meeting and collaborating? Or do I like to be more independent and solving things by myself? I mean, we've all seen companies, I worked for one that was a heavy meeting culture. We were a subset. We didn't have as heavy a meeting culture. We were collaborating, but was a lot more independence. But then when we got to the parent, it's like people you couldn't even get people on the phone because they were booked with back-to-back meetings the entire day. So, you look at what will help you succeed. Because there isn't a right answer or a wrong answer to these. It's what's the best for you. What's the style of boss? What's the style of management that helps bring out your best? Then get really specific about the industry, the type of company, the organization. What does it do? Is it a profit? Is it a nonprofit? Is it an NGO? What types of products or services does it offer? How big is it? And more important than the size, what is it about that size that attracts you? Do you like the startup? Do you like the next stage where they've got some financing? Do you like the well-established operations? They all have different cultures and different styles. So what helps you succeed the best? Are there any specific companies that you've come across that you think these would be really good? And why have you established those as your target? What is it about those other than just there is a name that everyone knows? And then finally, get to your compensation. Don't bring this in too early because it will tend to limit your thinking. But now that you've got a real clear picture, think about what do you need or want, and what do jobs like that pay? Do I need to go back and adjust my scorecard in some way? Or is there a way I can approach this sort of role that helps me get to the compensation that I need or want? So then think of it from the hiring manager's point of view. And I did all the actuarial hiring for my company for 13 years. If you aren't focused, don't waste my time. This is hiring managers. We've all seen the job search shuffle. This is where this person comes in and their focus very early on is asking me questions about what sort of person would make a really good fit here. Tell me what you're looking for. They're basically doing this shuffle. They're not committing to anything because they're afraid that they might get ruled out. But what happens is they're basically asking me for the answers to the test. And then when they say, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm like. I really like to do this. I'd like to solve these problems. I'm like, yes, you're just telling me what you think I want to know. So you've lost that chance to be genuine and to build a lot of credibility with me um, because either you're not focused or you're afraid to present a focus. Now, I'll give you an example of this. I had someone who came in for an interview, and 15 minutes into the interview, he said, I don't think this is the job I want. He was very focused on what exactly he wanted. I said, okay, tell me what it is you're looking for. We had a great discussion. I was very impressed. I didn't throw him out of my office. I had him go ahead and interview with everyone else on my team, including my boss. And at the end of the day, we sat down and tried to come up with the highest offer we could afford to attract him to our operation because he was very genuine, he was very focused, he knew what he wanted, and we could draw a picture for how this position could lead to where he wanted to be. But that focus, that genuineness really made a huge impression with us. So to summarize, secret number one, don't be a moving target. Create that personal scorecard for your ideal six-figure job. Use it to focus your search. And don't be afraid to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I'm about. This is what I want before I've necessarily told you exactly what I'm looking for, because you will have that genuineness factor and you will have a much better chance of getting to what you really want because you've presented that up front. So I'll pause for a second just in case there are any questions. I haven't been monitoring the chat. In fact, Marty, I'll call on you. Marty, can you watch what's going on in the chat and alert me if any key questions come up? And by the way, if anyone here doesn't know Marty Latman, you really should. He is an excellent networker. He's also a career coach, and he is very good at what he does, and an expert speaker on all of these topics as well.
I'll take care of it, John.
Great,
Thanks.
thanks. And I'm just going to pause for just a second to see who might have checked in later that I did not get on my list here.
So John, can we ask like a live question because I've been,
Yeah,
yeah.
go right ahead.
So I have two questions. The first one is regarding your value proposition. So how is that different from your elevator pitch? That's question number one. And then, so question number two, for those that have like more of a consulting background that have been in several industry, so when you say you have to be very targeted when you're doing your outreach, does that mean that you have to pick from the start the lane you want to swim in?
Okay, good questions. Okay, so the first one, value proposition versus 30-second pitch. Okay, I would say your value proposition is your full picture of what it is you bring to the table. Why should someone get excited about me? The 30-second pitch is going to be the really short example, just a snippet of what your value proposition is, enough to get me excited about talking to you more. And that's something if you've ever been to a workshop that I've done, you'll have heard me say, leave them wanting to know more. So the point of an elevator pitch is not to give them your whole value proposition, not to give them a whole lot of information, is to give them a snippet from it and an example of how you've helped someone so that they say, wow, Gene's someone I want to talk to because I see how he helps people. So that's the difference. The value proposition would have a lot more to it because I want to think about all the things that I bring to the table. But it's like kind of like I've got this basket of arrows that I can use. And in my elevator pitch, I'm going to pull one arrow out to grab people's attention, to get them to have a deeper conversation with me. And then I can bring out the rest of the value proposition over the course of the conversation.
Okay,
Um,
John, now that you've given me this wonderful
okay, Marty, go ahead.
job, here's a question. How can we get one-on-one interviews in the field that we want? People are so busy. Email, uh, go in person, networking events. What's the deal?
Well, we are going to get into networking as we get further. So let's bring that up again when we get to the networking section.
Boy, you're really testing me here.
You said 12:30, so yeah,
Uh, someone has just come off mute and seems to have background. Okay, thank you.
Here's
Um,
another one, John.
I think before you go to that, Gene said something he wanted to know about various industries and do I need to, related to targeting. What I would say is think about how am I going to describe my target in a way that people get it? If my target is I want to be in one of 3 or 4 industries, it's going to be really hard because everyone's going to say, well, which one are you focused on? The person who's in telecom is going to say, well, I don't know if this is what he's really interested in because he talked about high-tech companies, he talked about, pharmaceuticals. So you lose interest in all of them. So you either want to pick the one that is most interesting to you and make that the focus, or make the job, the type of job, the type of problem you can solve, your message that helps focus it that way. Because if you try to say all the industries, if you try to say the multiple levels, the multiple types of jobs in one story, one pitch, it's going to make it totally ineffective for pretty much everyone. Okay, go ahead, Marty.
Okay, here's another one. Do we customize our value proposition depending upon a potential job we are interviewing for?
You customize what you are going to emphasize. I mean, your value proposition really is your value proposition. That's what is you. That's what what you're bringing to the table. But what I'm going to say when I'm interviewing with Marty, what I'm going to emphasize when in that is going to be the things that I think are most related to Marty's issues. Now, that may lead to a conversation about different aspects of my proposition that maybe I didn't realize would be important to him as we go along. So I am going to shape it that way in terms of what I emphasize. But at the same time, if it's really important to me to do a lot of presentations and oral communications, and that's one of my value propositions, that I'm so good at engaging audiences. I don't want to hide that either, because I don't want a job that won't give me the chance to do that at all. So there may be certain elements that, even though I don't emphasize them up front, I still bring into the conversation because I want to find out, am I going to get to do that? Is that going to actually be part of the job? Because that might help me opt in or opt out from this situation. Okay, so let's move on to the second secret. How are we doing on time? Good. So the second secret is you need to tell powerful stories. And you need to be prepared. You give your one liner, someone says, oh, that's interesting. You got to be prepared. So you got to have good stories. They got to be concise, they got to be compelling, but you got to have good stories to engage people. So why are stories so critical? Well, they are what connects you with people on an emotional level. And that is absolutely key to everything you're doing. We tend to think that interviews are logical discussions, that it's all, do you have enough credentials, do you fit? No, it's an emotional decision, but it's justified by logic, by the credentials, by you having enough things. But if you get me excited about what you bring, that is so much more important than everything else. So this is how you connect on an emotional level. It's how you show you can communicate, because you're getting a chance to demonstrate your persuasive skills. They are unique to you. Your stories actually create your unique value proposition. You need stories that back up every point in your value proposition, but you've constructed your value proposition by thinking about those as well. They show how you think and act in different situations, which is in evaluating what you're going to do. That's what I'm trying to see. It's one thing to see that, yeah, you're a project manager, you deliver projects on time. It's another for me to get examples of difficult projects you've had to deal with and how you manage to get them on time. That shows me how you think. That shows me how you act and whether you're going to be a fit to our issues. So most importantly, they prove your point, but with engagement. So every sale, as I mentioned, is based on emotion and then justified by logic. Yeah, you get screened in for something because you have enough of the qualifications, enough of the things on your resume, but that doesn't get you hired. The hiring decision is an emotional one. So the facts and figures, that's the logic side of the equation. The stories deal with the emotion side. They deal with getting me to say, oh, Mark, I love his style. I love what he brings to the table. He would fit in so well here. How can I make this work? The home run, then, is stories that are backed up by concrete results, by concrete challenges you have solved. That's what's going to get you where you want to go. And storytelling is really an art. You need to think about some of these questions. What story best fits this situation? Is it even time to tell a story? Maybe, even though they might be looking for an example, maybe it's better for me to get some more detail, to dig deeper, ask some probing questions to find out what story best fits this situation. Should I tell the whole story? Or should I just give a little teaser, a short part of it that will invite more questions? And what aspects should I emphasize for this person, this situation, this question, this industry, this company? So you always, need to think about some of these things. And so there are three types of stories I would advocate. One is what I call the hero story. And if you want to know more about that, just go to my website. There's a box in the upper right, a search bar where you can say hero, and it will bring up the template and discussion of the hero story. There's also marketing headlines. These are basically your one-liners that you use over and over again in different situations to engage, to start the conversation. But the one we're going to look at is the core, the accomplishment stories. These are the more detailed, the 1 minute or less stories that are going to engage people on all the things you've done. And you need a lot of these. So I developed a template for this I call To Care. And the template goes like this. You want a title, a very simple title. This is my referendum story. This is my leadership story. This is my negotiation story, whatever, because that'll help you recall them when you need them. You want to focus on the challenges, the actions, and the results for the employer. Or depending on the situation, maybe it's results for the client, maybe it's results for the prospect. But you want to get them to care about what you've done. And the reason I developed my own template is because there are lots of fine templates out there. PARs, CARs, STARs. People have all different ones. But if you wanted to know why I developed mine to emphasize challenges, here's another article I wrote that will explain that and what I saw as the problem I saw with how people interpreted those models. So let's look at an example. So, and this is, a real example from a past client, but I, didn't use their name or anything to, preserve confidentiality. So I'll say it as if I were them. So I was chosen as the environmental expert to assess a long-range chemical detection system. The system was designed to identify chemical agents that put soldiers at risk. The government had already invested $1 billion when I was brought in, and any unaddressed environmental concerns could delay deployment and cost millions to alleviate. So all eyes are on my team. A lot of pressure. Well, so I jump in and I broke it down into 3 key steps. First, I scrutinized hundreds of documents to identify even the smallest possible environmental issues. Then I addressed each of those directly with the assessment leader. And finally, I resolved every environmentally related question raised by any team member. In the course of doing that, I discovered that there was a mandated analysis that the government would not allow us to move forward unless this had been completed. And no one had done it. So I dove in and developed this missing report. The result was that missing analysis alone would have created a mass production delay to pushing deployment back 6 months at a cost of at least $9 million. So we were able to avoid that. The assessment leader was so impressed, they invited my team to assess 2 more $500 million chemical detection programs. That gained the attention of the Army Environmental Command leadership. But most importantly, it facilitates the timely fielding of systems that can save soldiers' lives. So what do you think? Would that engage you? Would that give you an idea of what this person can contribute and what sort of problems they can solve? So that's what you want to do. Think, break it down like this, challenges, get really clear on what those are, some key actions, but notice don't go into lots of detail here. The more you emphasize the action part of the story, the less interesting the story gets. So break it down into just a few key steps. Let them ask for more, and then make it clear what the result was that you achieved. And that will really make your stories stand out engage people so that you can move forward. So the second secret, tell powerful stories, get employers and others to care about your accomplishments, and use that to now evaluate your six-figure scorecard that we talked about. Go back to the scorecard. See, do I have at least one story to cover every critical aspect of my scorecard, that everything that I'm going to need to sell myself for this role? And if not, what can I do to fill those gaps? So the third secret is that your resume is not really about you. Now, that may sound a little counterintuitive, but it's really not about you. It's about everyone else, about what you can do for everyone else. So think about, what are the critical marketing materials that you need for your search? Well, there's your most people, the first thing they say is a resume. Or if you're a consultant or seeking consulting assignments, there's a variation on it that I call an engagement bio. Because it's more important that I have a lot. I basically break down my stories into some short bullets as my engagement bio there. And I have some resume elements. There's your LinkedIn profile. And I guarantee you, every employer, every recruiter is going to look at your LinkedIn profile. So make sure it's sharp. In fact, we do at Beacon every quarter, we do a LinkedIn profile optimization workshop. And I know a couple of people here have been to that to go through one by one. We get a small group and go through their LinkedIn profiles and what can you do to really make it sharp and grab people's attention. There's your cover letters, which think of them as marketing letters. You need they show your communication skills, but they show your ability to market yourself. There's your business card or online business card, whatever you're going to use. There's your email address even, and your email signature, your tagline that you put under your email that grabs people's attention without overdoing it, without so much information that it just becomes overload. And maybe a portfolio sample work. So let's look at that resume. The resume is your sales brochure. More importantly, it's your source of talking points. And it's a confidence boost when you feel like you've got this document that really represents you well, that serves as a sales brochure for you. But actually, the most important aspect of the resume is not the product itself. It's not the resume, because applying directly to jobs is such a low hit rate anyway. The real important part of the resume is the development work you do to get it to where you feel really confident, where you've got really good talking points, you've got a really good unique value proposition built into that. That development work to get there is more important than the document itself. So you want to think like a hiring manager. And from my experience, here's how I boiled it down to 3 key questions that your resume needs to address to get my attention. First, does it have a strong professional image? Second, does it pass the 10-second test? And third, does it prove you will deliver? So the professional image, this is not saying it's got to be on fancy, colored paper and scented or anything like that. It needs to be professional. It needs me to look at it and say, Mark knows what he's doing. So it shows me that you care about your work and that you're capable of producing professional work. So think of it in those terms. I want to show that I care about what I present to you and that I know how to present something that looks professional. Then passing the 10-second test is about what you're going to say at that opening. What are you going to get me? What's going to make you leave me wanting to know more So I want to read more. I want to get you in front of me. And that's about a summary with a really clear picture of what you bring directly related to results. So avoid all the meaningless fluff. All these statements are absolutely worthless. Proven leader, seasoned professional, results oriented, meets goals. Well, why would I hire anyone who doesn't meet goals? Achieves objectives, problem solver. All of these are just worthless phrases that to me actually say you're not a very good communicator if you have to rely on those things. And then finally, here's an example of an opening that I thought was pretty good. Expert at market analysis, technology assessment, restructuring and financial strategies to improve operations and ROI. Identifies, evaluates, and secures and manages high-performing assets and turns around underperforming portfolios. Builds and transforms inefficient corporate structures into high-performance work teams. Employs network of high-level influential contacts to identify, recruit, and motivate the exceptionally talented. Skilled negotiator and persuasive communicator at all levels, from technical experts to boardroom. This would make me interested in talking to someone. It's given me a picture of their value proposition, of what they bring to the table, what might make me interested in reading further. So you want an opening like that. Think in those terms. And then to prove you will deliver, this is about the actual job bullets that you're going to put in your resume. So here's an example. Someone sent this, goes back a while. Someone sent this to me. And what's your reaction to this bullet? Created and propagated efficient communication, reporting, and process changing network between sell-side analysts, research data vendors, and institutional buy-side, sell-side clients. Manage client relationships and expectations of data quality, scrutinized and suggested improvements in data delivery mechanisms, and it goes on like that. Would you be excited about what this person did? Do you even have a really clear picture of what they did? It's a lot of jargon. It's a lot of big words. It just doesn't present well. So I sat down. Yeah.
There's a question, is a 10-second test the phrase you say or something you write?
Something you write. This is about the resume. The 10-second test is that opening part of your resume. You've got basically 10 seconds to get my attention, to make me not pass on to the next resume. So you want something that grabs my attention right away. I say, yeah, I want to read further. So I sat down with George and interviewed him on this. And here's what we came up with. Executed account management and customer service functions for 20% of the world's sell-side analysts in 15 research houses internationally, contributing to a 100% renewal rate and fourfold increase in sales in over 2 years. Now we had something that would communicate value, that would give a sense of the importance and breadth of his work, and not a lot of detail about all the details of the functions he did. All he says about it is executed account management and customer service for the details of that. Get someone really interesting. Say, yeah, I need someone who can contribute to a 100% renewal rate. I need someone who can contribute to a fourfold increase in sales. I need someone who is conversant in the international research house market and knows how to talk to these people. I need to talk to George. So shortly after this, George was able to negotiate a 30% increase in his pay at his current company because CEO liked him. He presented this case. He got the 30% increase, got to pick the boss he wanted for the new job that he was going to move up into. And he progressed from there to creating his own firm, his own asset management firm that had a unique strategy and had a very successful run. So think about this. Think in these terms when you're trying to develop your bullets. So to summarize, your resume is not about you. Think like a hiring manager. consistently answer the question, what's in it for me, the reader? What's in it for me, the hiring manager? Don't focus on yourself. Make your resume focus on them and maximize the use of those talking points that you develop in your resume. Use the resume as a vehicle for forcing you to really get a clear retrospective view of what you bring to the table, what your talking points are, and then use those to engage people. So the fourth secret is network as if your job depended on it, because it does. In my career, every job I have had at some level was based on networking. My first job out of college, the night before the interview, an old friend of the family I'd worked with the summer before said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going in for an interview at Equitable tomorrow." He says, I'm going to write to my old friend Carl Davies. Carl Davies was a senior VP and actuary at Equitable. I get there the next day, have an interview, 45 minutes, I'm sent on my way. And since I ended up there, I know that how it works. And I know I was not taken seriously. 2 days later, I get a call from John Van Kuren saying, "Can you come back in before you leave for California? We'd like to talk to you again." And I never checked, but I am convinced the only reason that happened is the letter arrived at Carl Davies' desk. He said to John, "This is someone you should check out seriously." And so they brought me back in. Now I get a half a day interview, 3 different actuaries. I get the job. So, and internal job changes, opportunities on interesting projects all came from networking and gaining visibility, getting known. So do you try to push through the front door, or do you get escorted through the guest entrance? Networking is what causes the latter to occur. Think about it. Who knows about positions once they're posted? Everyone. Everyone who's following that area. So they're getting inundated with resumes, with applications for that posted role. Now, on the other hand, what percentage of jobs are never advertised? 50%, 60%, 75%. You see numbers all over the place. I won't try to claim I know what the number is, but it's high. Let's say it's as few as 50% that are not advertised. Well, how are you going to find those 50%? Sending in applications to the ones that are posted, it's like swimming in the same pool that everyone else is swimming in, and you're trying to get there, where the ones that are never advertised, you can be the only person in the pool. And I've had this happen to myself, that I started my first consulting assignment. I was networking, talk to a guy at a conference. He says, "What do you do?" I tell him. He says, "Would you like a consulting assignment?" It was doing exactly what I love to do. This was a systems initiative. They were not out looking to hire a consultant. They had a problem. They had a very serious problem. Everyone's pointing the fingers at the actuarial group for not supporting the project well enough. Here comes this actuary who's really good at solving systems issues, major, conversion efforts. And so the next day I get back from the conference, go into their office, and I immediately have this assignment, 6-figure assignment, helping them make this happen. Only because I had the conversation with the right person at the right time. I presented the right message, and he said, "Wow, this could be a solution to a problem we had." So the only way to find these jobs that aren't posted is through networking. And there's a psychology that comes along with it, what I call judge it versus fudge it. When you're coming through the front door, through the job application process, at every stage, they're judging what they see. They're judging your application. They're judging your credentials, deciding should he go on to the next level in this process. None of that happens in the networking. When I just call Marty. I say, Marty, I'd love to sit down with you, get your advice, and we have this good conversation. He's in this fudget stage. He's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Well, I hear what John's saying. That's interesting stuff he brings to the table. Wow. And at some point it can shift to, I think I might know something that's a good fit for John. Let me make a connection. Let me introduce him. I think we have a need here. Let's talk about it. So it's a very different mindset when it's networking because it's not already at this judge it stage of are you a fit to what we have here already? So to network as if your job depended on it, I would advocate limit the direct applications. Don't ignore that channel because all channels have possibilities, but the percentage that get through that locked door is small. So don't spend the majority of your time trying to do direct applications. I had someone who reached out to me proud of what he had done, wanted me to promote it to my entire network, and he had been finding at least 25 jobs to apply to every single week. And this was before the economy turned the way it is now, before the market got very difficult. And he was finding 25 jobs every week to apply to. He was customizing his resume, customizing his cover letters, and he was very proud of having done this for 2 years. Yeah, it took him 2 years to land doing that. And the place he landed, he knew someone there. It was someone he worked for who was his internal advocate. And what he didn't see was that if he had spent the majority of his time setting up one-on-one meetings with all the people he knew and the people they could refer him to, he might have made that connection, gotten that internal advocate turned on, and landed in 2 or 3 months instead of 24 months.
John,
Yeah,
there's a question. If your search extends, how often should you go back to your contacts or your network, but not be considered a nuisance?
that's a good question because and one of the points here is having a keep in touch strategy. Figure out a game plan for how, I had a meeting with Marty. I don't want to let it go a long time because Marty will forget I'm there or think what's happened to him. He must have landed. I'm going to go off his radar. So there isn't like a magic timeline, but I would say look for easy ways to keep in touch. Like, obviously there's the anniversaries and birthdays and job change and other activity announcements on LinkedIn that can help you stay in touch with someone. There's finding articles that are interesting or resources. And I send Marty a note saying, hey, Marty, just wanted to let you know what's going on. And I found this article that I thought you might find interesting. I can also do it in terms of setting things up the right way. When I meet with Marty, I can say, hey, what I'm going to, well, I really appreciate everything you did for me. This is great advice. I'll let you know what happened. And what I'm going to do is plan to check in with you every month or so just to let you know what's going on, if that's all right. And so if I set the stage up front with someone as to what they should expect, then it won't feel like stalking. It won't feel like overkill. If they say, "Oh, that's too much. I'm going to be too busy." No problem. I'll plan to do it a little less frequently. So set up expectations, but then figure out ways you can touch people on a regular basis. Keep a list of all those contacts you've made and just put a potential follow-up date, so that you don't forget and let things go too long, or look at it periodically to say, who have I not followed up with in the last, month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks that I should reach out to again. Um, and make sure you craft a really strong message around those results achieved, around the challenges overcome. That hero story is a great way to introduce you. When I meet with Mark, he doesn't know me well. I say, you know, let me tell you a little bit about myself so you have some context and I can tell my hero story. You can use marketing headlines, these one-liners that bring out a result you achieve or can achieve or a challenge you've solved, and you pepper those into the conversation so that they hear what results you bring to the table, why someone should be interested in you. And I would argue, I would target at least 5 one-on-ones a week. If you're in a full-time search or you're building a consulting practice, you need a steady stream of these meetings to move you forward. And by doing that, you get so much practice presenting your message, presenting your stories, presenting your headlines, that you are so much more prepared when you actually get to an interview or when one of those turns into, in effect, a job interview. And I mentioned about sending a contact sheet. So, I would love to see you all use this as a vehicle for expanding your network. So what I will plan to do is to send all of you a contact sheet of all the attendees with your email address. And if you want me to add your LinkedIn profile, put it in the chat box and I'll do that. There are a few of you who signed in with just a first name or weren't on my list. So the ones who signed in with just a first name, if you put in the chat box your full name so I can link it to the contact sheet to be able to send you and to send everyone else your information. If for any reason you do not want to be on that list, you don't want your contact information passed on, just drop me an email or put in the chat box and I'll be happy to take you off that list. But I'd love to see you use this as a chance to expand your networks. In addition to hopefully some valuable points you're getting here. So before we get on to the 5th secret, something else, just as a thank you for attending. Anyone who's not already on my list, what I'll do is I will put you on the list for my career tips newsletter that I put out each month and the building influence series I created. That's one email per business day for about 2 weeks on concepts for how to build influence both in meetings in general and specifically in interviews. Again, if you prefer not, for any reason you prefer not to get those, again, just drop me an email or put something in the chat to say you don't want them, and that's fine. But people tell me they get a lot of value from those. And the other thing, if you're really interested in having a one-on-one discussion, I've set aside a few times on my schedule for a Kickstart Your Career Search session. It's a 30-minute session. I'll ask you to fill out the more robust assessment I mentioned, and then we'll use that to help you zero in on the goals and the challenges that you face in your search. It'll position you to take action, whether we go any further than that or not. If there's a fit, I'll tell you how we could work together to help you land the job and pay you deserve, but there's no obligation. This is not a sales call or, there's no hard sell here. It's just a session that I guarantee you'll get a lot of value out of. So that's the link to go there. And at the end, I'll put that link up again when we get to Q&A for anyone who doesn't get it right now. So the 5th secret to landing a 6-figure job is you need to ask the right questions. So the best psychology to come into in the interview, in my view, is that I'm coming in to help the hiring manager succeed by providing a solution that best meets the hiring manager's needs. It's all if I really come into this with the psychology that I'm here to really help them find the solution, and that I have the confidence to walk away if I'm not, or I don't want to be that solution. If that really comes through, I'm going to have so much more credibility, so much more genuineness with this hiring manager. They're going to really appreciate what I'm doing. And if I'm not the solution, if I'm not the right solution, or I don't want to be, I don't want to waste their time or my time. I want to preserve the relationship rather than just shoot for a job offer that I know I'm not going to take. So if you really embrace this, this will be a game changer in your search. So to accomplish both of those goals, you need to have a really deep conversation. You need to unearth what's going on here. Why is this job open? What's the challenge? What's so important here? What is keeping them up at night? You need to ask lots of questions. You need to ask the right questions, the ones that take it to that deeper place, that don't just leave things on the surface. So ask yourself these questions about the way you have been interviewing. Do you create an engaging conversation? Do you feel you already know it all? In fact, Marty probably remembers this because it was at his Feng group one time that I was there to talk, and beforehand, one of the members came up to he and I and complaining about how he had all these interviews. This is a senior financial person, has all these interviews for those jobs and never gets to the next level. And Marty says to him, "Well, what questions are you asking?" He goes, "What do you mean? I already know their issues. I don't need to ask any questions." That was his problem. Marty gave him the assignment to go out and I want you to make sure you ask key questions at every interview you have going forward. And suddenly he started getting invited back for the next rounds. Do you save your questions for the end? That's a rookie mistake. You want to have the conversation all the way through the interview. And do you ask questions about process or do you ask questions about substance? Process is, that's details. That's logic. That's boring. Get to the substance underneath it. What's going on? Why is this process in place? What's broken about it? What are we doing here? What do we need to fix? And the money question, this is the real deep hiring question, is how much is this challenge costing you? You want to get down to that level that we've gotten to where you're so convinced I can solve the problem, and now I'm getting you putting a number on it that this problem is cost you when you admit, yeah, it's the hiring manager, this problem is costing you $500,000 a year, and I've been able to show you how I've solved problems like this. How can you not hire me? How can you afford not to hire me? So this is the deepest level you can get that you really want to try to get to in every one of your interviews. So apply these 5 secrets to accelerate your search and land the 6-figure job you deserve. Don't be a moving target. Tell powerful stories. Your resume is not about you. Network as if your job depended on it, and ask the right questions. So now we can just go into Q&A mode. And as I mentioned, if you're interested in the Kickstart and you didn't get a chance to write down the link to go to sign up on my calendar for one of those sessions, there it is. And we can just, we've got up to 20 minutes to take any questions you have. And Marty, if you want to jump in and answer any questions too that come up, I'm happy to have you do that because let's take advantage of your expertise as well.
Thank you, John.
So I
Now,
will
are the
slides.
the slides going to be available to people?
We are recording the session, so everyone will get a copy of the recording, which will obviously the whole slide package is there in it.
Okay.
So what questions have we not fully addressed?
So John, if you don't mind me asking this, but it seems to me that the conversation that we just had centered around us being able to be in front of the hiring manager. But we know that often we have to go through the gatekeeper. So would you recommend the same strategy when we are dealing with gatekeeper or not?
Tell me, you mean when you're doing a direct application?
Not so much about the direct application. So often some people find us like either through a direct application or through a LinkedIn profile, and at that point, the hiring manager is not even aware yet that you are a fish in the net. So they're trying to vet you, and like somebody says here in the chat, is that some of the people that are approaching us don't necessarily understand the depth of our industry knowledge, or they don't, or often they don't understand really what we do. They're just there to try to find people that they feel like they are comfortable enough to push forward. So I was wondering whether you have some suggestion as to, okay, when we are in front the hiring manager, we can ask thoughtful question, because we can actually build rapport, because we are confident that the hiring manager, one, knows the problem they're trying to solve, and two, we could demonstrate value. Because I could just give you an anecdote. That I was in an organization where the job advertised and the job that needed to be done was totally different,
Hmm.
just because they didn't have a good internal process. But the guy, the gatekeeper doesn't really know what the hiring manager tried to solve. But you don't know that until you get in front of the hiring manager, that they say, well, you know,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well,
So yeah,
yes. Well,
yeah, I don't want to hold the
that's
room.
absolutely an issue. There's a job description. It's not just even that the job changed, but the position description is not necessarily the Bible of what the job is. I was in many jobs as, as an officer where the job description had been written by someone in that seat 10 years before, or had been written by an HR person having a little conversation with the hiring manager. And it doesn't necessarily reflect what the job was today, or it was, broad brushes, but that's it. The other thing is it doesn't reflect what's in my head today, what challenges I'm facing. There are 10 things on the job description. It's very likely that seven of those things are just, yeah, they're things that need to be done. They don't keep anyone up at night. They're just, you do this report, you get this reporting out, you do meet with these people. I don't get excited about that. There are three things there that we've had problems with. Those are the things that I am worried about. And then there's number 11 and 12 that aren't in the position description that at all, that are just in my head. And the only way you're going to get to those is by having that deep conversation with me. What is it that you're really trying to accomplish here? If you accomplish that, what else could you do? What could get in the way of making those things happen? How would you see my job helping in achieving those goals? What do you see as the challenges that I might need to overcome to make those things happen? I need to have that sort of conversation with the hiring manager. With the gatekeeper, I'm mainly I'm going to have a different conversation. I'm going to have some of that, but I'm going to think about what is this gatekeeper most concerned about? And if it's in HR or the internal recruiter, typically they're much more concerned with the culture, the fit, what the company is like. Do I fit that? So and they don't have the depth of knowledge of the job that the hiring manager does. So I'm more concerned with what they're worried about, what keeps them up at night, um, and and how can I get this gatekeeper to the place that they will send me on to the next level. But what I really want to focus on is trying to find ways, if company X is one that I'm interested in, find ways to have one-on-one conversations with senior executives at company X. And I don't care if it's in the specific unit. I just want to get inside, get to know really what's going on, what the company's issues are. The person in purchasing will know a lot of interesting things, give me a lot of insights that the person in finance might not. And then I'll be much more prepared when I am talking to the person in finance. So I want to try and work on getting those internal advocates so that I actually get invited to talk to the hiring manager, and ideally talk to them before we're ever talking about a job, so we're not at that judge it stage. We're just having this great conversation. Ardavan, I think you raised your hand.
Yes, hi, thank you. So I wanted to ask a question about uh, asking the right questions. So oftentimes when I'm in an interview, let's say like, how much is this costing you? They say $500,000. How is the break? How much is this process break costing you? They say 500,000. And then oftentimes I'll find myself saying, "Oh, okay, good to know," or "Great," but how do I respond to their response in order to continue the conversation further?
Well, one thing is even before you get to the money,
Or
you can,
any question, really.
yeah, you can do some qualification. Like, okay, no, so we've talked about this problem you're facing with whatever, with the purchasing system. You know, scale 1 to 10. How big a problem is this for you? And if they say it's a 5, nobody is going to put much attention on a 5. So you can do that first. That even qualifies things. Are we even talking about the right problem? Because even though it might be a $500,000 a year problem, if we've got $2 million a year problems that are taking our attention, or we don't feel we even have the resources to address the $500,000 problem, it could be that we're still talking about the wrong problem. But ultimately, I get them to say, "Oh yeah, this is costing us $500,000 a year," and part of the point of it is getting them to say that. So I like, oh well, back of the envelope, based on my experience, da 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 da, and it looks like this might cost you 500,000 a year. Does that sound right? And let them react, and they say, well, um, yeah, yeah, it is, or no, it's only costing us this. Now they've got that number in their head because they're probably not thinking about it that way until I've asked the question anyway. And then I could say, wow, well, what would it be worth to you if we could solve this problem? I could just dig a little deeper because typically when I get to that place, they're going to be asking me, okay, so can you solve this? How can you solve this? What are you going to do? So I'm looking for the invitation
Hmm.
to do the sale. The James says some interviewers don't provide any opportunity to ask questions during the interview till the end. Well, that's true. Some have like a process. That doesn't mean you can't still try to do it. Yeah, they say we're hold your questions to the end, or we'll give you a time at the end. So they asked me a question about um, my project management skills. So I can finish my answer with a question about that. Well, how would I apply it? How would you see me applying those skills on your job? Or what have you seen is the most important aspect of the project in your operation? So I can, as long as I make it related to what they've just asked me and what I've answered, it's not it's not like I've turned it into me asking questions. So I try to do that when I can. Or there's clarifying questions. They ask me, well, tell me about tell me about a situation where you had to do X. And I said,
Hello.
well, to be able to answer that,
Yeah.
I need a little more context. So
Okay.
tell me more about, and so that's different from taking it off track, asking questions. That's something related to the conversation. If I'm good at doing that, most times it will start to turn into a conversation. Even if it doesn't, it'll get some conversation in there. The person asked me, "Tell me about your strengths," if instead of going into a long story about my strengths, I say, "Well, I'd say my greatest strengths are X, Y, and Z. Which would you like to hear about first?" And again, it's a way of getting them involved in the conversation and showing me what are they most interested in.
There's another way to do that also, John. You don't know how it's going to lead, but I can tell you from a personal experience, I was in an interview with an individual who was just peppering questions, one after the other. It wasn't even a tennis match. It was just like boom, boom, boom. And I was ready for it because people told me that this is how this individual interviews. And after about 10 minutes of this, he asked me another question, and I just said, 1 second, look, I'll answer that question in a second, but I just noticed on your credenza, there's a helmet, football helmet. Is that Joe Namath's helmet? And all of a sudden he said, yeah, are you a Jet fan? Of course I am, blah. We never ended up with another question about the position. I left that interview with the job. It's a matter of getting to a position where the people who you are interviewing with really feel comfortable with you. Obviously you have to answer the questions some way that they want it, but just by changing the direction to pause the interview can lead to other avenues, so to speak.
Yeah, when you hit something that the interviewer is really interested in, it doesn't matter what the script was. They're likely to tear up the script. And now we're talking about the thing that they're really interested in, and that's where you build that engagement. Now, so Patricio asked, when the company is looking to find someone's replacement that will be fired, is it prudent to ask what that person is doing wrong or failing at? Absolutely. It's how you ask it. No, but yes, definitely. I always want to find out, why is this position open? Is it a new hire? And if so, why now? Why do they need this new position today? What's leading to that? If it's replacing someone, what happened to the person before? If it's someone that even if they weren't fired, I'm probably going to ask some things like, well, so let me ask you, how did this person approach the job, and what is it you would want me in this role to continue, and what things would you want to change about what I do in this? So I definitely want to find out what happened, and what can I do better than the last person. Tara, you have your hand raised?
Yes. Thank you, John, for a great presentation. My question is that you said the best way in one of your points, you said network as if your job depended on it. So if I network, the networking events is usually populated by people who are looking for employment. So how do I meet people who in a kind of a situation where not everybody over there is looking for a job. They have some capacity or some, they already have a job, and I could connect with them and develop a network. So that's really,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, there are professional groups, there are professional associations, but then also there's the people the people you used to work with, the people you've known over the years who are working, who can then introduce you to other people. You want every one-on-one you have to lead to a connection to someone else you can talk to. So you don't have to rely just on like job career groups. But if you do at the career, you can look for the people who maybe already landed, or who are the people. Marty, I think you're on, not on mute.
Him. Yeah, we also have the guy supposed to be coming for the ceiling.
There, sorry. So at a group, say a job search group, what you can do is look for the people who have recently landed. Look for the leaders of the group, because they're very interested in making the group successful and helping you be successful. So they are very well connected. Ask them who they could introduce you to that could move you forward. Look for people that you just connect with really well and say, hey, you and I, how about we share some connections. So you can use those groups. It's just those groups, you're right, that 90% of the people there are not employed. So it's not your prime group for the sorts of people you're trying to have one-on-ones with, but those can lead to now referrals to people who are employed. And then, meetup groups, you can find groups there. You can try chambers of commerce. They're all different places you can find people who are employed. But I like to rely very heavily on the people I know, and then have them introduce me to people they think could help me, and build organically that way.
Thank you.
So we're just about out of time. We have time for maybe one more question. I don't know if there was. Oh, how long of a career gap is okay before the gap becomes a red flag? As soon as you think it's a red flag, it's a red flag. I've never found that a career gap is the core issue. It's the psychology the person brings to it. If you have a really confident presentation, and yeah, okay, I got this gap. I can explain it. Let me tell you what I've learned in this time. Let me tell you why I am so ready for this job and what I'll do for you. Then the gap itself is not much of an issue. The main barrier for the gap is that the gap is a screening issue. The screeners may not let you through, but if you're not spending most of your time applying directly, you're spending your time networking. It's not an issue in the networking. And then when you get my attention, I say, wow, look what this person, look what James brings to the table. This is really interesting. And I'm going to connect him to someone who I think might hire him. The gap is no longer the issue. So I hope that helps. So thanks everyone for coming. It's just about that time. As I said, I'll put out later today a list of the people who attended. If you haven't gotten a chance and you want your LinkedIn profile in there, put it in the chat box, and I will make sure to include that in the file I send you. And if for any reason you do not want me to include you on that list, just put a note in the chat right now or send me an email at john@jhacareers.com. And look forward to seeing you at future events. Definitely check out the one on what trust got to do with it that we have coming up on November 11th. Ken Schur is a great speaker, and it will be a really good session.
Beacon is a national community of senior-level business leaders committed to sharing, helping, and learning. To find out more, go to beaconforlife.org.